The tale starts with our MC, Inukai, a single salaryman, crawling home after a long and exhausting day at work. As he approaches his house, a warm and inviting scent of curry fills the air, making him consider picking up some for himself. When he finally unlocks the door, he is met with an unexpected sight, an adorable girl kneeling and welcoming him as if she has been eagerly awaiting his arrival. Inukai briefly wonders if he left the TV on and accidentally summoned a magical girl protagonist. His mind races with confusion when she cheerfully announces that dinner is almost ready. Alarmed, he steps back, questioning who she is, given that he lives alone. The girl, with a bright smile, explains that they used to live together, but this only deepens his confusion. When he presses her for more information, she finally reveals something unbelievable. She used to be his pet Shiba Inu and has now been reborn as a human. Her name is now Komugi, allowing her to meet him in a way he can truly understand. Inukai, naturally skeptical, assumes she is making up a ridiculous story, or just it is him who is drunk and seeing her in his imaginations. However, Komugi remains insistent, trying to convince him of the truth. Growing frustrated, she resorts to reminding him of some embarrassing past moments, triggering a flood of memories that leave him stunned. He ultimately surrenders to the absurdity of the situation, giving her a hesitant thumbs up in agreement. Still puzzled, he asks how she even got inside. Given that he always locks the doors and windows, she casually explains that his parents gave her a spare key. At this, he inwardly groans, wondering just what his parents are thinking, and deciding to have a very long talk with his parents about not giving house keys to supernatural beings. Komugi excitedly tells him that she received so much love as a dog that she has returned to repay the favor. She proudly announces that she made his favorite star-shaped carrot curry, placing a steaming plate in front of him with a delighted expression. Taking a bite, Inukai finds the meal delicious and thanks her, causing her to beam with joy. To her, just making him happy is all that matters. After dinner, she notices a grain of rice stuck to his cheek. Without hesitation, she moves closer and gently presses her soft lips to his skin, brushing it away. Inukai freezes, his entire body stiffening, beads of sweat forming on his forehead. Like somewhere in the distance, an ambulance siren wails in solidarity. Before he can react further, Komugi gets up and happily moves to wash the dishes. Despite his bewilderment, he admits that it has been a long time since he last had a home-cooked meal, and it felt really good. Hearing this, Komugi practically glows with happiness. She eagerly asks for a reward, requesting head pats. Inukai hesitates, thinking about how different things were when she was just a dog. But since this is about her cooking, he decides it should be fine. He places a hand on her head, gently patting it in gratitude. She enjoys the affection, her happiness evident. For now, he figures this much should be acceptable. However, Komugi suddenly lies down, lifts her skirt slightly, and excitedly asks him to rub her belly. His eyes widen in shock. His thoughts spiral as he realizes how incredibly inappropriate this would be. Still, he tells himself to stay calm and pretend that she is still a Shiba Inu, nothing more. Steeling himself, he places his hand on her stomach and begins rubbing, making her squirm with happiness. She enthusiastically expresses how much she loves being petted like this, explaining that it brings back fond memories. Suddenly, she sits up and throws her arms around him in an affectionate hug, begging for more pats. Inukai, sweating profusely, struggles to process the situation. Inukai's brain waves the white flag as things escalate when she eagerly requests the kind of full-body pats she used to receive as a dog. She clings to him, pressing close. Panic rises in him, and he forcefully pushes her back, creating some much-needed distance. Komugi, realizing what she just did, suddenly becomes flustered and apologizes, admitting that she got too excited and lost control. Inukai takes a deep breath and firmly reminds her that she is now a human girl, which means they need to be more careful about these things. For a moment she seems confused, then suddenly gasps in realization. Panic takes over as she processes the implications, but just as quickly she brushes it off, confidently declaring that since it's with her master, mistakes don't really matter to her. Inukai, completely overwhelmed, jams his fingers into his ears, blatantly ignoring her words. Night falls, and he finally asks if she wants him to walk her home. She waves off the idea, explaining that she lives nearby and can get there on her own. Before leaving, she eagerly asks if she can visit again. Sighing in exasperation, Inukai allows it but insists she contact him next time before showing up unannounced. Komugi nods eagerly, promising to be more careful. With a warm smile, she cuddles his chest one last time, her affection unmistakable. Then, with a cheerful goodbye, she heads home, leaving Inukai standing there, still grappling with the absurd twist his life has taken. Returning home after another exhausting day at work, Inukai finds himself reflecting on how much things have changed. Normally, he would stop by a convenience store for dinner, but ever since Komuji arrived, there hasn't been a need. The thought makes him feel oddly content as he reaches his apartment. As soon as he steps inside, a familiar sight greets him. Komuji stands before him, wearing an apron, waiting to welcome him home. She announces that dinner is ready, her voice filled with enthusiasm. He thanks her but reminds her that she doesn't have to push herself to make dinner every day. However, she insists, explaining that she genuinely enjoys doing it. Inukai wonders if he has accidentally married into a loving but slightly chaotic household. After finishing his meal, he expresses his gratitude and Komuji, beaming with joy, informs him that she has prepared a bath for him as well. She explains that she thought it would make him happy. He hesitates for a moment before agreeing, thinking that if Komuji finds joy in this, then he has no reason to object. Without giving him a chance to react, she takes his hand and leads him towards the bathroom. He feels like a toddler being dragged off for bath time by an overly enthusiastic babysitter. Just as he starts to relax, Komuji suddenly begins undressing beside him. Inukai freezes in place, sweat forming on his brow as he stares in disbelief. Immediately, he turns away and firmly tells her to stop, demanding an explanation for what she is doing. She responds matter-of-factly, stating that baths are meant to be taken without clothes. Shocked, he quickly asks why they would be bathing together in the first place. Komuji, as if the answer is obvious, tells him that she wants to wash his back and then innocently asks if he is afraid of taking a bath. Struggling to find a way out of the situation, Inukai decides he needs to trick her somehow. Thinking fast, he tells her that she can join him only if she has a swimsuit. Confident that this condition will keep her out, he is left speechless when she suddenly pulls out a swimsuit from her belongings. Inukai watches in horror as his genius plan crumbles before his eyes, and before he can protest further, she is already preparing to step into the bath with him. Moments later, Komuji is happily scrubbing Inukai's back with gentle care. He reluctantly admits to himself that it does feel nice, but he reminds himself to stay composed. He thinks that once she finishes with his back, he will simply get up and put an end to this. However, as soon as he voices this thought, Komugi wraps her arms around him from behind and declares that she wants to wash his front as well. Before he can react, she starts scrubbing his chest, leaving him struggling to escape her grasp. Komugi, completely unaware of his discomfort, instructs him to stay still so that she can clean him properly. Her hands continue to move until she accidentally scrubs near the wrong place, causing Inukai to immediately stop her. She tilts her head in confusion before explaining that she was simply trying to clean his feet since slipping in the bath could be dangerous. His mind goes blank as he debates whether slipping in the bath is actually the lesser evil here. Before he can fully process her words, his foot loses its grip and he slides down, causing Komugi to fall on top of him. With excitement, she recalls how they used to bathe together before and would create bubbles just like this. Inukai has never wanted a time machine more in his life, to go back and make sure this moment never happens. But to her, it all feels nostalgic, and she happily reminisces. Meanwhile, Inukai, trying his best to keep his composure, firmly reminds her that it is time to get up and take the bath properly. Meanwhile, Inukai struggles to maintain his composure as he reminds her how wild she used to be during bath time. She throws the comment back at him, and he decides it's time to end the bath. Komuji arrives at Inukai's home as usual and immediately starts preparing dinner. As she busies herself in the kitchen, her phone vibrates with a message. It's from her master, Inukai, informing her that he will be coming home late tonight. Reading this, she decides to make good use of the time and folds the laundry while waiting for him. As she sorts through the clothes, she finds a dog-patterned towel. It looks familiar, just like her old self. Curious, she sniffs it and catches her master's scent. Smiling brightly, she thinks that if Rebirth had a return policy, she wonders if she could exchange herself for another round as a dog. Wanting something stronger, she then starts searching and pulls out Inukai's shirt. The comforting scent surrounds her as she slips it on. It's oversized and baggy, but its warmth feels like an embrace from her master. She twirls around, giggling before realizing she may now look like a kid wearing their dad's clothes. A feeling of loneliness creeps in as she stands there, lost in thought. She misses her master and wishes he would come home soon. As her gaze drifts, she notices something nearby, a piece of underwear. She walks over, picks it up, and stares at it, a slight blush dusting her cheeks. She stares at it like a scientist discovering a new species, one that smells suspiciously nice. A while later, Inukai finally arrives home. The house is eerily quiet, making him wonder where Komuji is. He looks around, eventually stepping into the room, only to be met with an unexpected sight. There, curled up on the floor, Komuji is fast asleep, clutching his underwear with a peaceful, happy expression. Inukai freezes, his mind racing as he tries to make sense of what he's seeing. When did she even get her hands on that? Shaking off his thoughts, he steps forward and gently shakes her awake. Slowly, Komuji stirs, blinking groggily before greeting him with a drowsy good morning. Inukai wonders if she's experiencing an entirely different time zone from the rest of humanity. She yawns and stretches before suddenly realizing the situation. Snapping awake, she gasps and looks around in panic. She quickly asks when he got home, realizing she had completely forgotten about dinner and the laundry. Inukai reassures her that he'll handle folding the clothes, instantly easing her worries. Nodding, she hurries off to finish cooking. As he takes a seat to rest, Komuji suddenly hugs him from behind. Surprised, he turns and asks what's going on. She simply smiles and says she loves his scent, then starts sniffing him, following the strongest trace she can find. Before long, she ends up near his lower half, still sniffing curiously. Inukai immediately tenses up, realizing where this is going, and quickly stops her. His survival instincts scream louder than an alarm clock at maximum volume. He tells her that she absolutely cannot sniff there. He moves away, trying to prevent any further mischief as Komuji watches him with innocent curiosity. Another day, Komuji waits patiently outside Inukai's office, her eyes scanning the area as she anticipates his arrival. The moment he steps out and sees her, he thanks her for waiting. He then asks if she wants to head home first, assuring her that he has no problem with it if she does. But Komuji shakes her head and replies in a determined tone that, given the occasion, she wanted to go home together. With that settled, they begin walking side by side, chatting casually about food and drinks along the way. Their conversation flows smoothly until something catches their attention, a woman walking her dog. Inukai pauses for a brief moment as the dog starts circling him excitedly. Amused, he crouches down and gently pats the energetic animal while smiling at its enthusiasm. Looking up at the woman, he comments on how full of energy her dog is. Standing behind him, Komuji watches, her expression darkening with jealousy, as if jealousy had a bark. She'd be howling at the moon right now. The moment the dog licks Inukai, her soul momentarily leaves her body, filing a formal complaint against betrayal. She doesn't like this. Seeing her master give attention to another dog unsettles her. As the woman and her pet leave, Inukai walks on, unaware of Komugi's growing frustration. Suddenly, she steps in front of them, blocking his path as if she's about to challenge him to a combat. With a determined look, she declares that she's ready. Inukai stops, blinking in confusion, wondering what has gotten into her. Before he can say anything, Komuji raises her voice, shouting that she also wants her master to love her. She insists that she, too, wants to lick him, because she didn't like seeing him give attention to that other dog. Inukai, taken aback, tries to reason with her, telling her that she can't do that because she is a human girl. But instead of calming down, Komugi's emotions overflow, and she suddenly bursts into tears. It seems like somewhere in the universe, a tiny violin starts playing just for her. As they continue walking, she clings to the back of his clothes, sobbing softly as she follows him home. When they arrive, Inukai notices Komugi's troubled expression. She's unusually serious, a stark contrast to her usual cheerful self. Taking a deep breath, she finally speaks. Despite working up the courage to be honest with him today, she still feels uneasy. Inukai watches her intently, unwilling to see her in distress. Without hesitation, he gently pulls her closer. As she steps forward, he wraps his arms around her in a warm embrace, patting her head affectionately. In a soothing voice, he calls her a good girl, and with heartfelt gratitude, thanks her for always being by his side. Feeling the warmth of his embrace and hearing those words, Komugi's mood instantly brightens. A joyful smile spreads across her face, all her previous worries melting away. When Inukai asks how she feels now, she beams and replies that she is totally satisfied. Inukai, too, feels happy knowing that he was able to bring her comfort. But just as he thinks the moment is over, Komuji suddenly declares that it's now her turn to return the favor. She leans in, slowly bringing her lips toward him. Realizing what she's about to do, Inukai quickly places his hands on her cheeks, stopping her just in time. With a composed but firm voice, he tells her, "Let's refrain from doing that." Komuji waits inside Inukai's home, eagerly anticipating his return. As she sits there, she realizes that waiting makes her feel restless. She shifts in place, feeling the urge to move. Just as she's about to distract herself, the sound of the door catches her attention. Inukai has finally arrived. Komugi dashes toward Inukai to welcome him home, but in her excitement, stumbles over an obstacle. Losing balance, she falls forward, her face landing against his chest. As if this was a movie, sparkles and dramatic music would be playing right now. Inukai looks down, slightly concerned, and asks if she's okay. Komuji quickly reassures him, muttering that she really needs to stop running so recklessly. Brushing it off, she eagerly grabs his hand and pulls him inside, announcing that dinner is ready. As they step into the dining, Inukai admires the delicious meal she prepared. But as he takes his seat, he notices something odd. Komuji is sitting unusually close. Without hesitation, he points it out. At his comment, Komugi dismisses it immediately, playfully insisting that it must be his imagination, as she has never heard of such a thing like personal space. Inukai glances at her for a moment but decides to let it go and starts eating. Just as he takes his first bite, Komuji suddenly moves closer. She picks up a piece of food and holds it up toward him, her eyes glimmering with excitement. With a cheerful tone, she encourages him, saying, "Master, say ah." Inukai pauses, thinking that this is no longer a meal, it's a high-stakes hostage situation. He hesitates, then tells her that he can eat by himself. But Komuji refuses to back down. She insists that he has to take the bite, warning him that if he doesn't, she'll drop it. She raises the piece of food again, waiting expectantly. Seeing no way out of it, Inukai sighs and leans forward, taking the food from her hand. Komugi watches him closely, waiting for his reaction. When he finally comments on how good it tastes, she lights up with joy, feeling completely satisfied by his response. On this appreciation somewhere, an invisible scoreboard adds another point to Team Komugi. Unable to contain her happiness, she throws her arms around him in an affectionate hug. Inukai blinks, slightly puzzled by her behavior. He tilts his head and asks, "Today you've been clinging on to me more than usual, Komugi. Did something happen?" Komugi, still holding on to him, shakes her head gently against his shoulder. She tells him that nothing is wrong, she simply always wants to stay close to her master. Her voice is soft, and she sways slightly as she rests against him. With no further explanation, Inukai resumes his meal. Just as things seem to settle, Komugi shifts beside him. She tugs slightly at her clothes, adjusting them before speaking again. She tells him that the closer she gets to her master, the warmer she feels. Inukai stops mid-bite, his eyebrows raising in confusion like maybe she has discovered a new form of solar energy. He turns to her and asks what she means by that. She explains that her face feels a little hot. Concerned, Inukai reaches out, lightly touching her forehead. Komugi watches him curiously before leaning in slightly, wondering aloud if she might have a fever. Inukai pauses, then decides to check properly. The thermometer soon reads 38.2 degrees Celsius. Seeing the result, Komugi laughs softly, admitting she hadn't even noticed she was unwell. Inukai, now understanding, wastes no time. He firmly tells her she needs to rest. As the morning light filters through the windows, Komugi rushes around, preparing with excitement. Today is the long-awaited day. She finally gets to go on a walk with her master. She carefully picks out the perfect outfit, making sure she looks her best for the occasion. A few days ago, Inukai had mentioned that since she always makes meals for him, he wanted to return the favor. But before he could finish, she had quickly interrupted, insisting that she cooks simply because she enjoys it, not because she expects anything in return. Despite her words, Inukai had insisted that he didn't feel comfortable always being the one receiving special treatment. At that moment, Komugi had eagerly told him that the only thing she wanted in return was to go on a walk with him. He had agreed, saying they would go next Sunday. At that, Komugi had been so happy that she had literally jumped with joy. Now in the present, Inukai stands waiting for her. Before he even sees her coming, she suddenly appears, throwing her arms around him in a quick hug and thanking him for waiting. If enthusiasm were a sport, she'd be an Olympic gold medalist. He notices how unusually energetic she seems and comments on it. She excitedly explains that she ran the entire way because she was too thrilled to simply walk. Inukai wonders if he should start carrying a legal disclaimer too when they go out. Then, with enthusiasm, she starts listing out their plans for the day. First, they will go shopping, then visit the bookstore, and finally, they will head to a newly opened cafe. But before all that, she wants her master to put a collar around her neck and lead her. She eyes it like a proud pet owner picking the perfect accessory. The moment he hears this, Inukai freezes. His expression shifts, and in a sudden motion, he firmly grabs both of her arms and tells her that they are absolutely not doing that. Without giving her a chance to argue, he quickly changes the subject and urges her to get going. Their first stop is a shopping mall, where Komiji excitedly browses through items. She picks out an apron for herself and selects a tie for Inukai. Afterward, they head to the bookstore, where she eagerly flips through different recipe books, absorbed in searching for new dishes to try. Finally, they arrive at the newly opened cafe, where Komiji orders dessert. As the treat is placed before her, her eyes sparkle with joy. She enjoys every bite, savoring the sweetness, and feels even happier knowing that her master is sitting right beside her. As their day comes to an end and they walk back home, Komiji turns to Inukai and thanks him for the wonderful time. He responds with a soft smile, telling her that he also had a great time. She reflects on the experience, admitting that visiting places she could never go to as a Shiba Inu now feels incredibly special. As she walks beside him, a thought crosses her mind. This outing feels less like a simple walk and more like a date. The idea makes her heart flutter with happiness. Without hesitation, she looks up at him and asks if he will take her on another walk in the future. Without missing a beat, he responds with confidence, saying, "Yeah, sure, let's go again." Hearing this, Komugi's joy overflows, and she throws her arms around him in another tight hug. Inukai lets out a small sigh, commenting on how quickly she always rushes into hugs, and at this point, he should start charging a hug tax. Instead of answering, Komuji simply laughs, enjoying the moment. Later that night, when Inukai returns home, he notices something sitting on the floor, a frisbee and a ball. As he stares at them, he suddenly feels like he's been tricked into a lifetime of fetch. His thoughts instinctively drift back to Komugi. At night, Komugi finishes preparing dinner. She announces that she has made a new dish from a recipe book. Inukai listens as she explains, and he reflects on how, at first, he was surprised by Komugi's dedication to cooking for him. But now, it has become a natural part of their routine. Hearing this, Komugi falls into deep thought, wondering if this means they will continue living together in the future, just as they always have. Suddenly restless, she calls out to him with determination, leaving him confused when she exclaims, "Leave it to her." Inukai briefly wonders if he accidentally triggered some kind of side quest, and he asks what she means, but she does not explain further. The next morning, while Inukai is making coffee, the doorbell rings. When he opens the door, he finds Komuji standing outside with the bag in her hands. She steps inside happily and thanks him for waiting. He wonders if he was actually waiting for her at all. Komuji, filled with excitement, declares that she is glad they will be living together from now on. Panic sets in for Inukai as he mentally flips through his memories like a lawyer searching for a legal loophole. Komuji reminds him of the moment he said that everything felt natural now, believing that he had meant living together. However, Inukai immediately refutes this assumption, raising his voice as he tells her they cannot live together. Shocked, she asks why that is not possible, arguing that whenever he is not home, she can stay behind as a useful guard dog. Inukai reminds her that she is no longer a dog, but Komuji insists that he should not worry about her, confidently stating that she is all grown up now. She begins listing all sorts of reasons why staying at his place would be perfectly fine, but he remains firm. He finally tells her that her parents would not approve of such an arrangement. With a triumphant look, she reassures him not to worry about that. She has already spoken to them. Reaching into her bag, she pulls out a letter, which thanks Inukai for taking care of their daughter and entrusts her well-being to him. Reading this, Inukai squints, wondering if this is genuine or if Komuji bribed them with homemade cookies. He realizes that refusing Komuji has become much more complicated. Even so, he tries once again to deny her request. As soon as he does, tears begin welling up in her eyes, making the situation even more difficult for him. Unable to see her cry, he finally gives in and allows her to stay. Overjoyed, she throws herself into his arms, hugging him tightly and cheerfully expressing her excitement at how much more time they will be able to spend together. Later, after settling in, Komuji approaches Inukai and asks whether she can take a bath first. He grants her permission, but she playfully suggests that they bathe together instead. He feels his soul attempt to physically leave his body. His immediate reaction is to shout at her in protest, causing her to dash away with a teasing laugh, singing a playful okay as she disappears into the bathroom. As she bathes, Inukai reflects on Komugi's persistent and stubborn nature. He concludes that rejecting her outright will only make things worse. For now, he decides to let her do as she pleases until she is satisfied, as long as he is careful. Suddenly, a loud, panicked call for help interrupts his thoughts. He rushes to the bathroom to find Komugi clinging to him, still dripping wet. It is immediately clear that she has not even finished her bath. Concerned, he asks what is wrong, and she quickly explains that there is a spider on her shoulder. He internally debates whether to focus on the spider or his loyal Shiba Inu. Without hesitation, he removes the spider and tells her to get down. She thanks him, but before she can say anything else, he suddenly fell in thoughts. He points out, in shock, that she is completely naked and tells her to put on some clothes. He questions whether her biggest threat isn't spiders, but her own lack of self-awareness. She laughs sheepishly, admitting that in her panic, she had not even noticed. Another night falls, and Komugi watches as her master arrives home and heads straight for the bath. She thinks to herself that all her work for the day is finally done. Meanwhile, Inukai, relaxing in the bath, finds his thoughts drifting back to Komugi's earlier antics. He knows he has given her permission to stay, but he wonders if this will lead to problems. He decides he needs to tell Komugi to be more mindful of certain boundaries. Just as he steps out, Komugi approaches him with a cheerful expression and asks if he has finished his bath. His eyes shift to the bed, where he notices the perfectly arranged pillows and neatly made blankets. Immediately, he senses that something is amiss. Komugi excitedly tells him that she has done all of this for him. However, he firmly tells her that they will not be sleeping together. Shocked, she questions him, wanting to know why. He explains that things are not the same as they used to be, but she refuses to accept his reasoning. Reminding him with exaggerated gestures, she recalls how she would always sneak into his bed, knowing full well that he would get mad at her. She gestures dramatically, as if recounting a tragic love story instead of a history of being a very persistent bed thief. Then, feeling dejected, she would sulk for a while before eventually curling up alone and falling asleep. Hearing this, Inukai sighs and prepares a separate sleeping space for himself on the floor, ensuring that Komugi can take the bed. He sighs, accepting his fate like a noble warrior sacrificing himself for the greater good. Despite her repeated attempts to persuade him otherwise, he settles down on the floor while she remains on the bed, watching him intently. Later in the night, he stirs awake only to find Komugi nestled beside him. His eyes widen in surprise as he realizes she is not just lying next to him. She is sitting on top of him, arms wrapped around him. For a brief moment, he genuinely wonders if escape is even an option. Her soft form presses against his as she moves closer, whispering. She reminisces about the past, recalling how no matter how lonely she felt, he would always allow her to sleep beside him in the end, simply because he was so kind. Inukai exhales sharply. His brain immediately sounds an emergency alarm. Flashing a giant danger sign, he reminds her that this was something he allowed when she was still a dog. Now things are different, and they cannot do this anymore. She tilts her head and asks why, prompting him to repeat himself once more. She is now a human girl. He has told her this so many times already, but Komugi is undeterred. With a playful smile, she insists that she has also told him many times before that as long as she is with him. Even if something naughty happens, she does not mind. Slowly, she starts pressing herself more firmly against him, inching closer as if preparing for a kiss. Before she can close the distance, Inukai swiftly leans in and places a gentle kiss on her forehead. For a moment, Komugi's brain visibly short-circuits for a second, like a computer hit with an unexpected software update. Then he softly tells her that this is the most he can do. Hearing this, Komugi's face brightens with happiness, and she immediately hugs him tightly. He sighs, instructing her to get some sleep now. Content, she settles in, and the two of them drift into slumber. In the morning, Inukai opens his eyes to find Komugi already awake. She looks at him with a curious expression and asks why he looks so exhausted. Did he not get enough rest? He inwardly groans, thinking to himself that this is entirely Komugi's fault. Without waiting for a response, she happily heads off to prepare coffee. Before leaving for the day, Inukai stops at the door and reminds her to make sure the door is properly locked. He doesn't say it out loud, but he's 90% sure she'll get distracted and end up adopting a stray cat instead. With that, he steps out, leaving Komugi to go about her morning routine. As the clock strikes 7 in the morning, Inukai wakes up and hits with the realization that, in just 2 weeks, the concept of normal in his life has been completely shattered since Komugi started living with him. he finds himself in a rather complicated situation. Stepping out of his room, he is immediately greeted by Komugi, who cheerfully embraces him. However, before he can respond, he notices something amiss and firmly tells her that she should put on her pants first. With a small chuckle, she admits she had forgotten and quickly rushes Lee behind a little dust cloud to correct it before he heads off to work. Evening arrives, and as he returns home, Komugi is already at the door, warmly welcoming him. She eagerly asks whether he would like to have dinner first or take a bath. He chooses dinner, and after they finish their meal, they lie together on the bed, reading a book. As they sit there, Komugi shifts closer, pressing her body against him. Noticing this, he reminds her that she has been clinging to him for quite some time. At this point, she is less of a person and more of an affectionate barnacle. She moves even closer, expressing her enjoyment of being near him. Eventually, they fall asleep in a while. Late into the night, Inukai's eyes slowly open, and he realizes something is off. Komugi is not just lying beside him, she is sitting on top of him, steadily removing pieces of her clothing. Shocked, he tries to stop her, but she continues pressing herself against him, ignoring his resistance. Just as his mind races for a solution, he suddenly wakes up, realizing it was all a dream. Turning his head, he sees Komugi peacefully sleeping in her usual spot on the bed. Letting out a relieved sigh, he relaxes, though his thoughts remain unsettled. His body is tense, and he acknowledges how much he has been holding back. The lack of personal space and Komugi's constant presence is starting to take a toll on him. If they are to continue living together, he knows this situation will only grow more difficult. As morning comes, he prepares for the day, still weighed down by his restless night. Before leaving, Komugi narrows her eyes like a detective uncovering a grand conspiracy and notices his weary expression and asks if he is feeling unwell, suggesting that they visit the hospital. Dismissing her concern, he reassures her that there is no need to worry and heads out, leaving her watching him with quiet contemplation. That night, upon returning home, he announces that dinner is ready. She excitedly reveals that she has made eel, having taken advantage of a special sale, believing that it will give him much-needed energy. Grateful, he begins eating, and she curiously asks if the meal has made him feel more energized. He assures her that it has, but she remains unconvinced. Something still seems off, and she voices her suspicion that there must be another reason behind his exhaustion. As if reaching a sudden conclusion, she loosens the collar around her neck and steps forward, expressing her desire to provide physical comfort. She insists that physical contact between a pet and its master will help relieve his stress and suggests that he pet her or give her a hug. Inukai reminds her that she is no longer a pet, but she quickly dismisses his concern. Lying down and exposing her belly, she encourages him to rub it, certain that it will make him feel better. For a moment, he simply watches her, unsure of what to say. As she moves closer, he finally takes hold of her shoulders and tells her that while he appreciates her intentions, this is not the right way to handle things. He thanks her but firmly explains that feeling a bit unwell does not mean that he is unhealthy, and she does not need to worry about such things. With that, he turns and walks off to wash his face, leaving Komugi quietly watching him as he goes. Komugi watches Inukai carefully, noticing that something seems off. He doesn't look like he's feeling well, and he's been avoiding her. A sense of worry creeps into her thoughts as she wonders what could be wrong. Meanwhile, on his way home from the office, Inukai contemplates his actions. He knows that if he continues behaving this way, he will only make Komugi worry more. He considers moving to a new apartment, one slightly bigger than the current one, hoping it might help ease his unease. Lost in thought, he reaches home. As he steps inside, he finds Komugi sitting anxiously, clearly troubled. She immediately looks up and tells him that she needs to talk, asking him to be completely honest. She explains that she has noticed how tired he has been lately and wonders if it's her fault. Ever since they started living together, it feels like he's been forcing himself to be around her. If staying with her is something he doesn't like, she wants him to tell her the truth. Hearing this, he quickly apologizes, but Komugi's eyes well up with tears like he pressed a hidden floodgates button. Seeing her like this, he immediately tries to reassure her. He explains that it's not what she thinks. The real reason for his distant behavior is something else entirely. He hesitates before admitting that, as a healthy young man, living with her every day has been a challenge in ways he hadn't anticipated. He had wanted to keep this to himself, but it only ended up making her unnecessarily worried. As soon as Komugi hears this, she bursts into tears, relieved that there wasn't any deeper issue. She confesses that she had feared he had started to hate her. Without thinking, she throws herself into his arms, clinging to him as she sobs. Inukai gently pats her back, trying to calm her down. After a moment, she lifts her head, now smiling through her tears. She teases him, saying that she has put her master through a tough time, but now it's her turn to take care of things. She declares that if there is anything she can do for him, she will do it. Inukai's brain crashes like a cheap old laptop. He immediately refuses, but Komuji boldly straddles him, assuring him that she had already prepared herself for this, so it's not a problem. Panic rushes through him as she cups his face, pulling him closer and pressing a kiss to his lips. She confesses her feelings, telling him that this is how she truly sees him. Hugging him tightly, she whispers, "I love you." Somewhere, a tiny version of him is running in circles, screaming. Inukai pauses for a moment, conflicted, but then wraps his arms around her in return. However, deep inside, guilt gnaws at him. Komuji, on the other hand, radiates happiness, circling around him with an excited glow. He gently tells her that she will have to wait just a little longer until she is truly grown up. Until then, he will take full responsibility for everything. Hearing this, she eagerly embraces him from behind, whispering that she hopes that day comes soon. Inukai realizes he's in an endless boss battle. That night, they sit together, simply enjoying each other's company as the warmth between them grows stronger. Summer vacation has arrived, and Komuji excitedly embarks on a long-awaited trip with her master, Inukai. However, their journey takes an unexpected turn when their ship leaves them stranded in the middle of the ocean. With no other choice, they struggle to reach the shore, finally setting foot on an isolated island. Inukai scans the area, realizing that apart from them, no one else is in sight. He briefly considers if Komuji secretly planned this and wonders how they will manage to survive in such a place. Determined, he tells her that they need to search for food and water. Komuji, ever eager to help, nods with confidence. As they explore, she suddenly hears a sound and quickly leads Inukai to a spot where they find a towering coconut tree. She looks so proud, as if she just discovered a new continent. With her help, they successfully gather a decent supply of fruit, ensuring they have something to sustain themselves. Next, they attempt to catch fish. This time, their efforts pay off as they manage to catch an impressively large one. Both of them celebrate their small victory, enjoying the thrill of their survival adventure. As the sun sets and darkness blankets the island, they build a fire using collected wood. The freshly caught fish roasts over the flames, filling the air with a delicious aroma. Sitting side by side, they savor their meal and gaze at the star-filled sky. Komuji, lost in thought, wonders aloud what will happen if no one comes to rescue them. She muses that they might end up living on the island forever, just the two of them. Inukai, amused, turns to her and asks if she would truly feel alone in such a situation. With a bright smile, she reassures him that as long as he is with her, she will never feel lonely. Inukai sighs, realizing she sees this as a dream vacation, not a survival crisis. At present, Inukai notices Komuji sleepily mumbling to herself, lost in a dream. She seems to be talking about something adventurous, her words slightly incoherent. Inukai stands nearby, watching her with curiosity, wondering just what kind of dream she could be having.